Welcome to the Cauldron of Curiosities.
It's January and I'm currently in Coventry, but recently I went to the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford. And one of the interesting things that I found in Oxford was lots of buses, very easy to get into the city centre, but if you're travelling in a van like I was, most of the park and rides have got a 2.1 metre barrier which stops fans from getting inside. I was able to get into one of the park and rides on the east of Oxford, where there are about 5 spaces next to the recycling, and it's quite close to Oxford Parkway station, and it's called the Parkway Park and Ride, and I did manage to get a space in there, and I caught the bus in. Dogs aren't allowed unless they're assistant dogs into the museum, so it had to be quite a quick trip whilst Bumble was chilling out in the van. Pitt Rivers. Now, Pitt Rivers Museum is tucked in the far corner of the Natural History Museum in Oxford, and the lady said to me when I went into the Natural History Museum, she said, "Oh, we are the original Natural History Museum." And it's beautifully laid out, and we had school visits, and there's a cafe there. It's over several levels, and they also have a really good collection of different marbles and rocks from different parts of the world, and they're done in pillars, so they're beautifully polished, very interesting to look at if you like rocks and crystals. Maybe you might like to visit that section of the museum. But I was intent on getting into the Pitt Rivers because time was of the essence for me, and I went over and I got given a understanding of where the main exhibits were, and I was given a map. And the Pitt Rivers, if you were going to sum it up in a few words, it's about society and culture, and there it's an exhibit of the things that people have created in the past. So there is everything from clothing, toys, jewellery, makeup, weaponry and sports items. But one of the first cabinets I looked in did actually have items for sport, including horse riding, and they're an amazing pair of leather boots that were made by the Hausa people from Nigeria. And it said that the Hausa were incredibly gifted with their leatherwork, and they made shoes and boots and saddleware as well as other items, and that was something that I wasn't aware of. And they had made this pair of boots that were on the display out of offcuts of leather, so they were seamlessly stitched. And they also had a display of the different types of footwear, and there was a type of sandal that was commonly worn by people in ancient Egypt, had been found buried when the archaeologists had been digging in that area. I actually started on the first floor to have a walk around because there were some exhibits of Netsuke that I wanted to go and have a look at, and I went up there first, which was an eye-opener. The cabinets are quite dark, and they're sort of reminiscent of maybe a Victorian museum, and crammed full and handwritten labels, which is really quite interesting. And you can open the drawers and look at other elements of the exhibition. The Pitt Rivers also includes a really good recycled exhibition, and it shows you what people from different countries can do with recycled elements like plastic, metal, making lamps out of cans, for example. There is a large Netsuke collection which has mainly humanoid figures, although there are some quite cute caricatures of animals, and these are shown in the pictures if you're watching the video with the green background. My Netsuke preferences are the animals, and I quite like the skulls that have been carved in ivory. The Japanese Netsuke collection at the Pitt Rivers is part of the Herman Gunther exhibition, and I believe there's also some Netsuke at the Ashmolean if Netsuke is something that you are interested in. These were originally used by Japanese as a trouser toggle, and they would spend months carving them, and very intricate to look at them. So if you can zoom in on the photographs or look online. Chinese shadow puppet cabinet, which reinforces my idea that early people used to play with the elements. They also, if you think about it, the Chinese also used to play with the wind, with their kites, and some of the things that people maybe have turned into more of a sport were where people once took time to weave their daily activities with the elements that were around us. There is a whole section of the museum which demonstrates how humans have, over the ages, adapted their bodies, from tattoos to wearing brass plates around their ankles, which would make your gait very heavy and exaggerated, and would designate that you were one of the richer people of a village. There's scarification, where you would deliberately scar the skin and create keloid scars as part of your rite of passage, and this may be at the different stages of your life, from a teenager to becoming a bride, for example, although males also underwent scarification in the African nations. There's makeup. The Egyptians with their kohl, although kohl round your eyes would be there to help with the glare of the sun. There were some cabinets that showed photographs of lip plates, and they would slice into the lower lip, and it would start to extend the lower lip out until it became quite big, and they would have these wooden plates within the lower lip. And you wonder, why would you do that? But I was thinking as I was looking at these photographs that maybe having that meant you were rich enough that you wouldn't have to choose so hard, because you would have access to the best foods. And all of these things that they were doing were demonstrating to other people through sight of who you were, what stage of life you were in, and also whether you were privileged within that part of the tribe. The ground floor has a really good example of mandrake root, which those of you who are Harry Potter fans may have seen them digging up and putting into pots when they had to change them over. And you would have had to warn headphones to stop the squealing, but I don't think that happened with a person that dug up this piece of mandrake root. The charm section is also on the ground floor, and some people are drawn to that area, and one of the photographs shown has hagstones, which many people still collect today. So it's well worth a visit, and I will be going back. Learning about other cultures can help us find commonality and maybe not place people in a position where they feel that they're different to us. When you look at the United Kingdom, the 2021 census revealed that there were over 287 distinct ethnic groups and nationalities that call the UK home, which, when you break that down and look in London, there's over 200 languages spoken. So why wouldn't you want to find out more about them, and what do they have in common with each other? We often find out about other cultures when we read books, and Some of you may be avid book readers, and that might be something that's worth you exploring, is what cultures do you feel are similar to the UK and to your own culture? Do you identify with a culture that has a lot of strengths with your county, for example? So maybe you might be like me and you come from Cornwall, where we have identification with the Celtic race, and there are certain trades that may be more usual with those that historically came from that county because of the land and the sea. Here we go down another rabbit hole. One of the cultures that really interests me, and I went to Egypt earlier this year, is that of the ancient Egyptians. And one of the posts that I saw while I was out there was about the principles of Maat, or Maat, that's M-A-A-T, and there are 7, the core concepts, and they start with truth. And truth includes understanding reality. How do we understand reality when we are bombarded with lies? How do you discern what is right and wrong when you are overwhelmed with information that's incorrect, or maybe has a touch of reality to it? Think about the number of people that are now looking on the internet, on social media, and they don't know whether they're looking at a real video or one that's being created by AI. Look at some of the photos that people put up. Are they real, or has someone altered them? We are in a world where we are looking at things without truly understanding whether they are real or not. But in the concept of art, truth includes living authentically, and that means not sharing those lies, doesn't it? Surely. And it's understanding the divine and our connection to the divine, because there is a strong belief that we are all part of the divine. We are all connected because we are all matter. The other concept, dinet, justice, equity, fairness, right action for all. Yes, you heard me correctly. All, A-L-L. That means there isn't right action for me or fairness for me but not for you. There isn't a split. Balance, Amu, maintaining cosmic equilibrium and personal integrity. Do we live by our own rules? Do we treat other people as we would like to be treated? Do we live authentically? Are we living with integrity, or are we lying to ourselves? I sometimes see posts on some social media platforms, and I'm curious about where that person's focus is. Where are they going? What is their life purpose? Why are they here? What are they doing? Do you know why you're here? Do I know why I'm here? I sometimes think I'm here from a philosophical point of view, and as a rabbit hole explorer, maybe that is my purpose. To challenge thinking, to ask others, so what do you think about that? How does it make you feel? Is it something you believe in, or is it something that someone else has told you to believe in? The fourth concept is order, or Kemet, the natural and divine structure of the universe. And I do believe that is something that, as we spread more plastic and waste around the world, we poison ourselves, We are poisoned by many of the foods in the supermarkets, such as ultra-processed foods. We're interfering with the natural structure of the universe. We're interfering with divinity. We're interfering with our connection with each other. And then you look outside and ask, is there harmony? If you go and watch the news, it would suggest no. Harmony, or heather, is a peaceful coexistence with proper relationships. And television would indicate that it's normal not to live in peaceful coexistence. It's normal to not be kind to each other. It's normal to use violence as a reaction, to be defensive rather than kind. But is it normal? And should we be considering whether we are happy to have this type of information squeezed into our lives, leaching into our system, whether we want it there or not? And do we know how to have proper relationships? Do we work towards good communication? And I think good communication links beautifully with the sixth concept of Mart, which is reciprocity, seneb, mutual respect, giving and receiving. Do you have a reciprocal relationship with anyone? And who is it? And how did it happen? The seventh principle is propriety, the right conduct, dignity, and ethical behaviour. And that ethical behaviour weaves throughout all of those core concepts, doesn't it? About living authentically, about being in proper relationships, and personal integrity, being truthful, that fairness that we are seeking. So what they have done, and there is a website called thechemicexperience.com, and these are the rules or the ideals. I have not committed sin. I have not committed robbery with violence. I have not stolen. I have not slain men and women. I have not stolen grain. I have not purloined offerings. I have not stolen the property of God. I have not uttered lies. I have not carried away food. I have not uttered curses. I have not committed adultery. I have made none to weep. I have not eaten the heart. I have not attacked any man. I am not a man of deceit. I have not stolen cultivated land. I have not been an eavesdropper. I have not slandered anyone. I have not been angry without just cause. I have not debauched the wife of any man. I have not debauched the wives of other men. I have not polluted myself. I have terrorized none. I have not transgressed the law. I have not been angry. I have not shut my eyes to the sights of truth. I have not shut my ears to the words of truth. I have not blasphemed. I am not a man of violence. I have not been a stirrer up of strife. I have not acted with undue haste. I have not pried into others' matters. I have not multiplied my words in speaking. I have wronged none. I have done no evil. I have not worked witchcraft against the king. I have never stopped the flow of water of a neighbour. I have never raised my voice. I have not cursed God. I have not acted with arrogance. I have not stolen the bread of the gods. I have not carried away the kenfu cakes from the spirits of the dead. I have not snatched away the bread of the child, nor treated with contempt the God of my city. I have not slain the cattle belonging to the gods. And these were rewritten, you'll be pleased to know. I honour virtue, I benefit with gratitude. I am peaceful, I respect the property of others. I affirm that all life is sacred. I give offerings that are genuine. I live in truth. I regard all altars with respect. I speak with sincerity. I consume only my fair share. I offer words of good intent. I relate in peace. I honour animals with reverence. I can be trusted. I care for the earth. I keep my own counsel. I speak positively of others. I remain in balance with my emotions. I am trustful in my relationships. I hold purity in high esteem. I spread joy. I do the best I can. I communicate with compassion. I listen to opposing opinions. I create harmony. I invoke laughter. I am open to love in various forms. I am forgiving. I am kind. I act respectfully. I am accepting. I follow my inner guidance. I converse with awareness. I do goodness. I give blessings. I keep the waters pure. I speak with good intent. I praise the goddess and the god. I am humble. I achieve with integrity. I advance through my own abilities. I embrace the all. And those were rewritten by Lady Lauren Wiener from the Temple of Isis. And it's interesting when you go through those 42 ideals, and they shouldn't really be that difficult to follow, to live in harmony and balance. And I think these ideals are very closely linked with some of the teachings of the indigenous people across the whole of the world. And I'd be interested to know whether you thought that as well. And were there any of these ideals that you believe you found quite easy to follow, and others that might be more difficult? A short story. Once upon a time, there once was a man who was highly ambitious. He wanted to leave his mark on the world. The man was a keen servant of the king and wanted to ensure that the king knew about his work and his efforts. The man was a good host and had had many friends. He was seen to be a fair landlord and master. But this soon changed. It became apparent that the king had a particular distaste for independent women and had written a book about wise women, about how they were able to help others through the use of herbs and potions. And this book said that these actions were evil. These were women who had passed on their skills to kin and apprentices for centuries. They had learnt from the land. The king used the symbols of church and science and became a champion for purging society of any women who may have used the land and the elements of the universe to work with his subjects. The man saw that his king would reward sycophancy, so he hoisted his own campaign to ferret out the wise women in his land, and he dragged them before the assizes. The man, being a landlord and landowner, was able to push and move people where he wanted them. If they had a job, he was able to speak to the person who managed them. Well, I own this pub and I don't want this woman or person working here. He felt he was following the king's ideals. So how were the commoners able to fight this man or the king? It wasn't fair. It wasn't just. It wasn't equitable. The land spirits saw that the humans stopped communing with them, or it seemed like that. There were less coming down into the woods, gathering herbs and plants to help heal naturally. The numbers of those who understood how to use the energy of the elders and plant law became less and less. The power and knowledge shifted. When the man went to heaven, and he was weighed against Matt's feather, he stumbled when he realised that he had not brought his badges of honour with him. His heart was heavy, as it was weighed down with his avarice, his lack of authenticity. He was unable to defend his behaviour, because he had used his position and power to dominate both his land and the people, and he had not guarded it with fairness and equity. The man was shown how he had damaged generations through his deliverance of fear, and how he had split communities by forcing lies that turned families against each other. The man cried. He could see his grave marker, where it announced what a valuable asset he had been to his king. It showed the titles and new lands that he had been awarded, but these were no longer with him. He stood alone, and he watched as his wife and the remaining wise women that he had not been able to catch dance on his grave. The book that I have been reading has been Time's Convert by Deborah Harkness. Now, you may have read Deborah Harkness books where she talks about the romance between a very old vampire and a witch in Discovery of Witches. Can you read Time's Convert on its own? You probably could, but there are lots of references to characters that appeared in the trilogy that she wrote that was a bestseller. And it made me think about, was there a learning point from this book? It talks about the importance of family, the importance of culture, of following the rules to avoid things going wrong. And it's interesting to think, can you learn anything from vampire culture? And there's often this element where human beings, when writing about vampires, talk about there being a code, and the vampires follow that code, and if they don't follow the code, they get killed. And that's quite archaic in itself, isn't it, when you think that was how we used to do that as human beings. If we didn't follow the code, we would be killed. We might get eaten. So is it relating back to the darkest of days, when if you were stupid and didn't follow the rules or whatever the tales told you not to do, you would get eaten, because you'd go outside in the dark on your own and the animal would be waiting for you. And where do vampires come from?
vampires appear to come from parts of Eastern Europe. They seem to be associated with that. But if you start digging into the internet, and I have to say Google, it really is not as good as it used to be for finding information out, because you ask for a particular thing and it gives you 10 different other things that have no relevance to what you asked. Then you will see that this is an 18th century piece where people were getting overexcited. There was a bit of panic going on related to vampires. And was this as a result of stories, or was it as a result of people from that part of the world moving across from Eastern Europe to Western Europe, bringing their tales of vampires with them? Because I'm quite sure I have come across the concept of vampires in other parts of the world, in other myths, in mythology. What does it mean? Taking blood from another, or is it taking energy from another? There is a podcast which talks to people who call themselves vampires, and they're energy vampires. And that means they consciously take energy from other people. And that means really we should be thinking about not allowing other people to take our energy. So how does that fit with the book? Because it makes you think about how fiction popularises these ideas that there is someone all-powerful who will always succeed. And there are characters in Deborah Harkness's books who are almost godlike in their ability to do anything and survive all, and survive centuries, and to be all-seeing, all-knowing. And in a way, her character, Philippe, is very similar to the All-Father, Odin, don't you think? Those of you that have read the books. Because it might seem like he's being controlling, but he's actually doing it in the long run for your own good. And some people might say that about Odin, about some of the tasks that he may set people, is he's doing it to support you and your actual path, because sometimes we're not really aware of where we're meant to be going, and we fight it and we go, I'm not doing that, I'm not being told what to do. And then later on you'll go, why didn't I follow that advice? I would have made my life so much easier for myself. But it's something that human beings are very good at doing, isn't it? Not making things easy for themselves. We don't like learning from other people's mistakes. And Times Convert is a really good delve into people not listening to advice from people who are older than them. Because that is quite human, isn't it? So it seems even vampires don't like listening to older vampires who've got more experience and maybe been to that party before. Why is it we like to do it ourselves? Why is it we don't like taking advice? Good point, hey. It's a sunny day. I'm near Bobbin Hall Equestrian Centre, and look at the hedges. There is some green in the hedge behind me, as well as the sunshine. So I'm going to turn this around. Hopefully it's going to work. It's not going to do it for me. And I want to show you, what can you see? So there are green points poking up through the hedges. We've got some younger nettle. There's dandelion. We've also got a bit of ivy, ground ivy, and there were signs of lords and ladies, and they're the ones that you have to be really careful that you don't pick thinking it's wild garlic. I'm not picking up the scent of wild garlic here. So have a look there. Good amount of ivy with berries on for the birds, but you can also see that the hedges have been flailed here. Plenty of plastic that people dump And there, the hazel is got the catkins looking beautifully green in the light. So what can you do? What should we be picking right now? So if you're lucky enough to be in an area where there is wild garlic, you can eat the whole plant. And the flowers are really tasty when they do come through. You might need to double check that you are picking the right leaves. And there was some YouTube videos which will tell you the difference between the main ones that are out there. And there's a robin high up saying good morning. So a beautiful day, and I will add this. So do look out in the hedgerows. It's the start of my foraging year, which is, I know it's January, and look at what's poking its way up out of the leaf mould. It's an interesting time. If you've got any questions about what's in the hedgerows where I am, then do contact me or comment below. I'm at info@thedandelion.co.uk.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cauldron of Curiosities. Don't forget to follow the podcast, share it with a friend, and keep your lantern handy for the next curious tale.